Hello and welcome to the Sewing Studio. Today I'm going to show you how to make the pinwheels that are in this quilt using half square triangles. My friend Julie from Kerno Quilters has loaned me this quilt and she's happy for me to share all the measurements with you. It's a quilt that she's made up herself and she's actually made it up with fabric that she's had left over from other quilts, and I think it's really stunning. So first of all I'm going to show you how to make the block, and then we're going to go over and look at the quilt and we're going to talk about the other measurements. So the first thing you're going to need is to make some half square triangles, and these are what we're going to use to form our pinwheel block. And what you need for this is you need an assortment of lights and darks. So sort your fabric first of all, and you need to make a finished 3.5 inch square. You need to start off with a 4 inch square. So you need a 4 inch of light, a 4 inch of dark. And what you do is you put those two together. Now lots of people do half square triangles by cutting across the diagonal before they sew, and that way you're not always quite so accurate because you're cutting across your fabric and you're getting quite a lot of stretch. So I'm going to show you another way of doing half square triangles where you don't get as much stretch in your fabric. So the first thing you do is you put them together, a light and a dark, you put them right sides together. And if you press them, that helps to hold them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold, let me show you on this camera, I'm going to fold corner to corner like this. I'm going to fold across there, corner to corner. In fact, I'm going to do it on the light side because it makes it easier for me to see when I'm sewing. So fold it across, and then I'm just going to press that line because that's the line that I'm going to sew either side of. So we're now going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew. So we're going to sew and we're going to put the edge of our 1/4 inch guide actually in the line. So if you look on this camera here, you can see our pressed line. So we want to sew 1/4 inch either side of that line. So if I put my foot down, you can see that my 1/4 inch guide is going down that line. So I'm going to sew all the way to the end. And then I'm going to turn it round and I'm going to put the 1/4 inch guide in the line and sew the other way. So I'll have a sewn line 1/4 inch either side of my pressed line. So now I'm going to go back over and I'm going to cut that on that pressed line using a rotary cutter, and then I'm going to press my 2 half square triangles the other way, and I'll show you how to do that. So we're now going to use our rotary cutter and we're going to cut along the pressed line. So that's in the middle of our sewing. And then we're going to go to the iron and we're going to press this back. Now at this point, if you always press your fabric to the dark side, you will find that when you come to match up your squares to form your pinwheel, you'll find that your seams are all going the way you need them to go. So when you put your opposite colours, your seams are going to butt together. So always remember to press this towards the darker fabric. So you can see we've got our 2 squares using our triangles, our 2 half square triangles. So now I'm just going to trim off. You can see you've got these little tabs, so I'm just going to trim those off. I sometimes call them ears. I'm just going to trim off the ears, and then I'm going to show you how we arrange these to form the pinwheel. So what I would normally do is I'd probably do quite a bit of chain piecing and then come back to the iron and press them all and then trim them all. But for the purposes of today, I'm just going to do this one, and then I'm going to show you what to do. So you can see on these ones that I've already put together that you've got a light, a dark, a light, a dark, and you can see how that's forming a pinwheel shape. So I've done 2 already, so I'll just show you how to put these together. So if we take this one, for example, and we place, just move that up there a minute. So we place our light and our dark, and then I'm going to take another one and I'm going to put the light and the dark. And what you want is you want all your lines going into the center. So what you wouldn't want, for example, is that where your line is not going into the center. So all your lines are coming from the outside into the center. And then I'm going to take, let's have another one to mix it up a bit. And then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to, no, that's it, that way round. It's my line coming inwards, so you can see light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. And then we'll just find one more, and that is light, dark. And then what you do to join these up is I take the first 2 and I'm going to go back to the machine and I'm going to join those together. And then the next 2, I'm going to join those together. I'm actually just going to trim that one up because that one seems to be slightly bigger. And that's the beauty of these rulers that you can use to square up. If it's come up slightly bigger, don't get stressed about it. There is such a thing as a slither trim. You can just trim it up so that they're all the same size. So I'm now going to go back to the machine and I'm going to show you how we put those 2 together. So using a 1/4 inch seam, I'm just going to sew straight down. I'm going to leave my needle in the work and sew straight down the other one as well. I should have picked up my scissors, but anyway. So open these out. And then you need to make sure that one seam goes one way. So if I push that one to the left and I push this one to the right, and you can see how those seams, if I show you here, you can see how those 2 seams are going to butt up together. And then we're going to sew all the way down. So putting our block together. And nesting our seams together in the centre. And then we're going to go back to the iron and we're going to press that, and I'll show you how to put them together. So we're just going to press this where we've sewn it to form our pinwheel block. And the beauty of using a heavily patterned fabric is that if you haven't got it quite lined up, it really doesn't notice and it's not worth getting stressed out about. So that's our other block completed. We need 16 of these to make the quilt. So I'm now going to go over to the quilt and talk you through what the measurements are for each piece and how it's been put together. So the finished quilt is 50 inches square. You need 16 of the blocks that I've just shown you. And then what Julie's done is she's sashed in between each block using a 2.5 inch strip and a 2.5 inch square for the cornerstones. The next border, she's done 3.5 inches and 3.5 inch cornerstones. And then the outer border is 4.5 inches and 4.5 inch cornerstones. And as you can see, Julie's pinwheels are much, much neater than mine. I think they're amazing. So the quilting has been done using a blue thread and this lovely wavy quilting stitch that's been done on the machine. And I love the detail here where it's crossed over onto this cornerstone and again on this one. And then the binding, which I think is great, is actually a pieced binding. So if you look, every so often there's this different colour blue which has been put into the binding, and that's in different places all the way round. Now, I would have thought it was random, but knowing Julie as I do, she's probably measured it and done it absolutely perfectly. But I think that's a really lovely extra detail to have in your binding. And then finally, because this was made using up pieces that were left over, she's done a pieced back. So I'll just show you that. So if you haven't got a piece of fabric big enough for the back of your quilt, this is a great idea for making other pieces fit. So as you can see, these have all been put together to make a big enough piece of fabric for the back of your quilt, using up all your scraps. And I think it's gorgeous because you've almost got a reversible quilt. And when you can see this lovely blue quilting through it, it really does make a feature of your back. It's almost as interesting as the front. So I'd like to say thank you to Julie for loaning us the quilt. As always, have fun, and I look forward to seeing you next time here in the sewing studio. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There's a button just to my left. If you've got any questions, we're happy to answer those in the comments below. And for all your patchwork and quilting needs, head on over to the sewing studio. We have an amazing array of patchwork and quilting products, and all of the relevant links are in the description below. Look forward to seeing you next time.